demonstrating a continuing tradition of sailing directions that went back to the Viking explorers, as shown in the British search for a northwest passage. Without the Vikings, the post-Columban re-exploration of North America would have been very different in its character. In researching Vikings in America, I found a great mass of firm evidence, but also an almost equal volume of what may best be described as fiction. Ideas that the Vikings reached California or were somehow linked with the Templars or any other Masonic group are, in my view, without any justification, and have not been considered here. I have, however, looked at a whole range of doubtful evidence which may or may not give information about Vikings in America. In all cases, I have sought to be clear that there are doubts, but also to avoid the temptation to discard theories out of hand. At least some of the disputed materials will, in my view, come to be accepted as reliable. The most controversial legacy of Viking America presented in this book is that the name America is of Viking origin. The old view that America takes its name from the explorer Amerigo Vespucci is a tired idea, now so totally discredited that it cannot be maintained today. Though still taught in many American schools, it may be that in discarding the Amerigo Vespucci hypothesis, we should simply say that we do not know where the name America comes from. Yet we must also note that America is a regular phonological development of a name we know the Vikings used in their Old Norse language for this part of the world. Either the Vikings named America, or by some strange coincidence, America gained from an unknown alternative source a name which resembles that used by the Vikings. The Vikings are certainly the first European settlers of America. They may also be the people who named the continent. The Columbus myth. The established view of history sets out that in 1492, Christopher Columbus set out from Spain with 3 ships, sailed across the unknown ocean with his sailors in fear of falling off the edge of a flat world, and discovered America. Today we may note that he didn't know he had discovered America, but thought instead that he was many thousands of miles away in India. For that matter, he failed to establish trade with the lands he visited or to found any lasting settlements there. Surprisingly, if his role as first European discoverer were to be maintained, the New World is named not after him, but supposedly after his contemporary, Amerigo Vespucci. All these limitations on Columbus's achievement are well known, but do not detract from the central role that history has given him as the discoverer of America. American history pretty much starts with Christopher Columbus, and because we were taught about Columbus in our early school years, we tend to hold to the story almost as an item of faith. In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Yet today, we know for sure that this is wrong. If we stop for one moment to think about it, we realize that no European is the first discoverer of America. Rather, the Americas were discovered many thousands of years ago by the Asiatic peoples who crossed the Bering Strait from Asia and made their lives in the Americas, the ancestors of the Native Americans who still inhabit the continent. At the very most, the role of Christopher Columbus is that of the first European to reach America. Yet even this more limited role for Columbus we now know is simply not true. For 50 years or so, there has been a popular awareness of academic evidence that many Europeans saw America before Columbus. No one today can reasonably doubt that the Irish made it across the Atlantic and back to Ireland nearly a millennium before Columbus, and told plenty of stories of finding a land to the west across the Atlantic. There is now widespread acceptance that the story of the Irish St. Brendan's voyage in a coracle from Ireland to America and back again is a record of an actual voyage. Probably other peoples made their way across the Atlantic well before Columbus. For example, the supposition that the Basques, in search of Atlantic fishing grounds, ventured ever further west and found America is persuasive. They certainly reached the rich fishing grounds of the Grand Banks in the northwest Atlantic, just a few hundred miles from the American shore, and it beggars belief that in the hundreds of years that they fished the Grand Banks, no ship was ever driven by storms those extra few miles to sight the coast of America. Yet neither